I'm standing in the middle of a lumber yard surrounded by cops, paramedics, and a screaming woman on a stretcher who's still yelling that I should be fired. The manager, red-faced and furious, points at me and bellows, "You're fired, get out of my store." And the best part, I don't even work there, never have. I'm just a customer who tried to help someone and ended up getting canned from a job I never had. I'm Tom, a regular 32-year-old guy who usually minds his own business. But last Friday, at this rundown local lumberyard, everything went completely off the rails. Let me take you back to how it all started. I was in there just trying to grab some lumber for a weekend project, when I spotted an older gentleman, probably in his late 60s, looking utterly lost in the aisle. He was staring at a shelf of fasteners like they held the secrets of the universe. Now, I know better than to get involved, I really do. I've read enough r/IDontWorkHereLady stories to know you just keep your head down. But the poor guy looked so genuinely bewildered, and the only staff in sight were two teens giggling at something on a phone. So I figured, what the hell, I walked over. "Lost, buddy?" I asked with a sympathetic grin. He chuckled, a weak, defeated sound. "You could say that. Can't find anyone to help, and frankly, I wouldn't know what to ask for even if I did." I leaned in conspiratorially. "Look, man, save yourself the headache. This place is a ghost town of knowledge. Your best bet is to find another customer who looks like they know what they're doing. The manager here, he'd rather chew nails than help you." We shared a good laugh about the sorry state of things, two kindred spirits commiserating over corporate negligence. That's when Keran made her grand entrance. I saw her coming, a woman in her late 40s, early 50s, storming down the aisle like she owned the place. Her hair was a helmet of blonde, and her eyes were fixed on me. Before I could even finish my chuckle with Mr. Gentleman, she was right in my face, jabbing a finger towards me. "Finally, I've been looking for someone for 20 minutes. Are you going to help me or just stand around gossiping?" I blinked. "Ma'am, I actually don't work here, I was just—" "Don't give me that," she snapped, cutting me off. "You're wearing a blue shirt." "Everyone who works here wears a blue shirt." For the record, it was a faded denim work shirt, completely devoid of any logo or uniform-like qualities, but logic was clearly not her strong suit. "I need a replacement part for my rental house. And I need it now. If you don't help me, I'll have you fired." My blood pressure started to climb. Fired from a job I don't have, the sheer audacity. My first instinct was to walk away, just turn on my heel and leave her to her self-important rant. But then I pictured the manager, that sourpuss, and how he'd react to a screaming customer. I really just wanted to get my lumber and get out without a scene. "Look," I sighed, rubbing my temples. "I'm a customer, but okay, what exactly are you looking for?" It was a moment of weakness, fueled by a desire for peace. And it was a mistake I'd live to regret. She rattled off some obscure plumbing part. I, against my better judgment, actually knew where some of the overstock was kept. I led her to a high shelf. "All right, it's up there," I said, pointing. "Looks like you'll need a ladder." "Well, get it for me then," she demanded, hands on her hips. "Again, ma'am, I don't work here. I'm not authorized to use the equipment, and honestly, I'm not getting on a ladder for you. You need to find an actual employee for that." Her face went crimson. "You are so unhelpful, this is ridiculous. I demand you get that part down for me. I'll call your supervisor." That was it. My peace treaty was officially over. "You know what? No, I'm done. You can wait for an employee or call whoever you want. I'm leaving." I turned to walk away, finally fed up, when I heard a gasp from behind me. "Hey, watch out." I spun around just as a terrified-looking young woman came rushing towards me and Mr. Gentleman. "That lady, she's pushing a ladder down the aisle." I didn't even have time to process it. Keran, with a wild look in her eye, was indeed muscling a massive, industrial-grade extension ladder, scraping it along the floor, heading straight for the overstocked shelf. My jaw dropped. Was she actually going to climb it herself? My mind raced to the manager, the one who'd rather gnaw off his arm than help a customer. I had to warn him. "She's gonna hurt herself," I yelled, taking off for the front of the store. "Manager, that woman in aisle 4, she's climbing a ladder." The manager predictably just grunted from behind the counter, scrolling on his phone. "Not my problem, customer. Take it up with customer service." "She's going to fall," I insisted, practically yelling. He waved me off, clearly annoyed by my interruption. A sickening crash echoed through the store. The manager's head snapped up. Mr. Gentleman, who'd followed me, looked genuinely horrified. Keran, it turned out, had not only climbed the ladder but had somehow managed to tip it, sending herself and a cascade of plumbing parts tumbling to the floor. She lay there amidst the wreckage, screaming bloody murder, not about her injuries but about me. "He refused to help me. He should be fired. Fire him. Get him out of here." Paramedics arrived, along with a police officer, all while Keran continued her banshee wails, still demanding my termination. The manager, finally forced to act, pointed a trembling finger at me. You're fired, get out of my store. I stood there dumbfounded, but I don't even work here, I'm a customer, I was trying to warn you. He just scowled, doesn't matter, you caused a disturbance, get out. As I was being escorted out by the officer, who looked utterly bewildered by the whole situation, I glanced back. Keran was being loaded onto a stretcher, still screaming about my supposed negligence. And there, leaning against a stack of plywood, was Mr. Gentleman, wiping tears of laughter from his eyes. He gave me a thumbs up. So yeah, that's how I got fired from a lumber yard I didn't work at, all because I tried to be helpful, and then tried to warn an incompetent manager about a rampaging Keran. The frustration was real, but honestly, looking back, it's just too absurd not to laugh. Sometimes life throws you a curveball so ridiculous, all you can do is shake your head, grin, and share it in the comments down below.
This next one had Reddit losing its mind. Quick pause, subscribe now, because the chaos doesn't stop here.
You ever just be standing there, minding your own business, enjoying a perfectly chill Saturday night, and suddenly find yourself starring in a chaotic, alcohol-fueled drama where you're the villain? Yeah, me neither, until last weekend. I'm Cedric, 37, just your average middle-class bloke who somehow keeps stumbling into these wild Reddit stories. This one, though, this one's a doozy. So picture this, I'm outside a busy bar in Manchester, the night air buzzing with distant music and general revelry. My buddy Phil and I are just chilling, nursing our pints, having one of those deep, rambling chats about life, the universe, and everything. It's idyllic, really, for about 5 more minutes anyway. Suddenly, this tornado of noise and sequins sweeps toward us. A gaggle of girls, absolutely plastered, stumbling and shrieking with laughter. They're all dressed to the nines, clearly having had a very long night out. As they get closer, their energy is less party-central and more approaching critical mass. Before I can even process it, one of them, who I'll forever think of as the General, because she commanded the chaos, makes a beeline straight for me. She's got wild eyes and an unshakable grip. Next thing I know, her hand is clamped around my forearm, and she's practically yanking me off my feet, dragging me towards the bar's entrance. "Come on, you," she slurs, her breath reeking of cheap Prosecco and desperation. "You gotta help us, they're attacking my friends." My brain is doing gymnastics trying to figure out what the hell is happening. I glance at Phil, who's now sporting a look of pure, unadulterated bewilderment, and then back at the General. "Whoa, hang on," I start, but she's already pulling me through the doors. Inside, the music is pounding. I can see a couple of her friends on the dance floor doing well. They're definitely dancing with 2 blokes, not fighting them. No punches being thrown, no frantic gestures. Just some awkward grinding. The General, however, sees it differently. To her, it's a full-blown assault. I try to politely disengage, mumbling something like, "Look, I think there's a misunderstanding, but she's having none of it." She pivots, her grip still firm, and suddenly her free hand whips up, aiming a clumsy, alcohol-fueled slap straight for my face. My reflexes, honed by years of dodging life's curveballs and a few stray elbows in mosh pits, kick in. I duck back just in time, feeling the wind of her palm brush my ear. "Whoa, easy there, lady," I exclaim, genuinely taken aback now. This is not how my quiet night was supposed to go. I managed to break free and practically power walk out of the bar, thinking, nope, not my circus, not my monkeys. But these weren't just any monkeys. These were incredibly persistent, drunk monkeys. The General and her posse spill out after me, suddenly furious. "That's him," the General shrieks, pointing a wobbly finger. "He's the bouncer who wouldn't help us. He just stood there." My jaw practically hits the pavement. "The bouncer? Are you serious? I don't work here. I was literally just standing outside 5 minutes ago." Just then, a real bouncer, a mountain of a man named Dave, emerges from the bar's entrance, looking supremely unimpressed. "What's going on out here?" he rumbles. The General, seeing an actual authority figure, doubles down on her delusion. "He hit me, and he took my money." Now this is where it gets less funny and more genuinely concerning. Dave turns his gaze, which could melt steel, on me. "Did you hit her, mate? Did you take her money?" "Absolutely not," I protest, hands up in a gesture of surrender. I just told her I don't work here. She grabbed me, pulled me inside, tried to hit me, and now she's making stuff up because she's completely wasted. Phil, bless his heart, finally snaps out of his stupor. He's right, Dave, he chimes in. We were just having a quiet pint. This woman dragged him in. Dave, ever the professional, just nods slowly. All right, let's go inside. We've got cameras. The walk back inside felt like a perp walk. The general and her friends are still shouting incoherent accusations, while I'm trying to mentally map out how I'll explain this to my grandkids. The bar manager, a calm, collected bloke named Mark, is already at the security screen when we get there. He rewinds the footage. And there it is, playing out for all to see, me minding my own business. The general grabbing me being hauled inside. The non-fight, my attempt to leave. Her wild swing, my quick dodge. My exit, her accusations outside. It's all crystal clear. The relief washing over me was immense. Mark turns to the girls, his face grim. All right, ladies, the footage pretty clearly shows what actually happened. You grabbed this man, accused him of things he didn't do, and tried to assault him. He's a customer, not an employee. You need to leave. Now. But no, oh no, drunk entitlement is a powerful drug. They start arguing with Mark, with Dave, with me again, denying everything the camera just showed them doing. Mark, seeing they weren't budging, just sighs and pulls out his phone. Fine, police it is. That seemed to finally pierce through the alcohol haze, albeit slightly. Muttering curses and threats, they finally stumble out of the bar, still indignant. Phil and I exchange exhausted glances. Well, he deadpanned, that was an evening. We were just about to head back to our quiet spot when, no more than 5 minutes later, guess who shows up at the door again? The general and her crew, looking slightly less furious, but still utterly deluded. Hey, the general slurs, her voice somehow both aggressive and wheedling. Can we come back in next week? We'll be good, honest. My jaw dropped. The audacity. I looked at Mark, who just gave me a weary nod. Absolutely not, I told her, my voice firm. You're banned. Permanently? Mark just backed me up with a stern look, and this time, finally, they got the message and vanished into the Manchester night. Mark, shaking his head, led us back to the bar. Honestly, Cedric, Phil, I'm really sorry you had to deal with that. On the house. He nodded to the bartender, who promptly poured us 2 fresh, glorious pints. Phil and I clinked our glasses. We sat there, sipping our free drinks, the adrenaline slowly fading, and then we just burst out laughing. It was frustrating as hell, genuinely concerning for a few minutes, but man, what a story. Accused of being a bouncer, an assaulter, and a thief, all in one go, by a woman who thought I was her personal security. You just can't make this stuff up. So yeah, next time you're out, minding your own business, just remember, you never know when you'll become the unwitting star of someone else's drunken delusion. And if you're lucky, you might even get a free round out of it.
You ever have one of those days where you're just trying to do something nice, minding your own business, and then bam, some entitled stranger decides you're their personal whipping post? Yeah, well, buckle up, because I've got a story about exactly that. It was my junior year of high school, and I was knee-deep in an education course that required field experience. Think of it as a taste of teaching, but mostly it was just experience. The classroom I was assigned to was run by my old 11th grade teacher, and let me tell you, she was a piece of work. The kind of teacher who'd ask you to do something, then complain about how you did it or try to get out of paying you back. So when she asked me to pick up some sodas for a back-to-school party, promising to reimburse me, of course, because I wasn't some unpaid intern, I sighed but agreed. But I also thought, you know what? These kids deserve better than just lukewarm soda. So I decided to grab some small gifts for the students too, just a little something from me to show them some actual appreciation. So there I was, strolling through the snack aisle of our local grocery store. I had the soda, some little bags of candy and trinkets for the kids, and a few things for my own dinner. I wasn't wearing any kind of uniform, just a plain hoodie and jeans, my usual after-school ensemble. I was humming to myself, probably debating between 2 brands of frozen pizza when I felt a distinct rummaging in my shopping cart. "Excuse me," I said, turning around, already feeling that familiar prickle of annoyance. A woman, probably in her late 40s or early 50s, with a severe haircut and an even more severe scowl, was indeed elbow-deep in my cart. She pulled out one of the bags of candy I'd picked for the students, her eyes narrowed. "Oh good, you finally showed up," she said, her voice dripping with impatience. "I've been waiting for ages for someone to restock these." My jaw almost hit the floor. "Waiting for what? Lady, what do you think you're doing? Those are my candy bags." She scoffed, holding the bag aloft like a trophy. "Don't be ridiculous. These are clearly for the store shelves, and since you're obviously an employee, you should be stocking them, not trying to hoard them." "I'm not an employee," I retorted, a flush rising on my neck. "I don't work here. I'm a student and I bought those for a school party." Her eyes practically bugged out. "A student? Don't insult my intelligence. You're wearing that blue shirt, clearly a store uniform, and you're buying school-related items, trying to pass them off as your own. You're probably trying to steal them or resell them at a markup." I looked down at my perfectly plain, dark blue hoodie. "This is just a hoodie, it's not a uniform, and I'm not stealing anything, I'm paying for these." My frustration was building. This woman was completely unhinged. But then a thought clicked in my head. I knew this store like the back of my hand, and more importantly, I knew who really ran it. My cousin. "Look, lady," I said, trying to keep my voice steady, "I told you I don't work here. I'm a high school student buying supplies. And trust me, if I did work here, I'd know better than to wear a plain hoodie as a uniform." I let a beat of silence hang, then added, a little smirk playing on my lips. "Unlike some people who seem to think they own the place." Her face went from a splotchy red to a furious scarlet. She stammered, her gaze darting around, probably looking for a manager to back her up, but she knew she had nothing. She mumbled something inaudible, practically shoved the candy back into my cart, and then, without another word, she grabbed her own basket and scurried off down the aisle, her head down. It was a glorious, albeit fleeting, moment of victory. I shook my head, paid for my groceries, and headed towards the front of the store. And who should I see, straightening a display by the customer service desk, but my cousin Mark. "Hey, cuz," I called out, giving him a quick hug. "You are never going to believe what just happened to me in aisle 5. Mark, who's usually pretty unflappable, just raised an eyebrow. "Oh yeah, what fresh hell did you encounter this time?" He knows my luck with these sorts of things. I recounted the whole insane interaction, from her digging in my cart to her uniform accusation and her dramatic exit. Mark listened, slowly breaking into a grin, then a full-blown laugh. "No way," he practically roared, attracting a few curious glances. "She actually thought you worked here. My own cousin, trying to steal candy for a school party. That's rich. Some people just live in their own little world, huh?" "Tell me about it," I sighed, still a little exasperated. "It was just so annoying, you know." Mark clapped me on the shoulder. "Totally, but hey, at least you stood your ground. Don't let folks like that get to you. Just focus on that education course, kick butt, and leave the Keran wrangling to the actual employees, okay?" And that's exactly what I did. The whole thing was frustrating as hell, but it was also a pretty solid lesson in standing up for myself and not letting anyone push me around, even if they're convinced your hoodie is a uniform.
This next story might destroy your faith in humanity, but first subscribe so we can keep making these videos.
You know how some days just feel normal? Like you wake up, go to work, expect the usual grind, maybe a few annoying customers, but nothing too wild. Well, let me tell you, my normal got absolutely shredded one afternoon at the print shop, and I ended up in a literal wrestling match with an octogenarian. Yeah, you heard that right. Buckle up, folks, because this one's a doozy. It was a pretty standard Tuesday at the print shop. I'm Keran, by the way, and usually my biggest challenge is untangling a paper jam or explaining the difference between glossy and matte to someone who just won't get it. I was just minding my own business, helping a lady figure out the binding machine when this old guy shuffles in. He looked like he'd seen better days, probably late 70s, with a wild, scruffy beard and glasses that looked like they were barely clinging to his face. And his expression, pure thundercloud. He made a beeline for the self-service copiers, then stopped dead, grunting something under his breath that sounded suspiciously like HMPH. My customer finished up, and as I turned, he fixed me with a stern glare. "These machines don't work," he declared, pointing a shaky finger at the row of perfectly functional copiers. I tried to keep my smile pasted on, even though my internal monologue was already rolling its eyes. "Hi there, how can I help you today?" I asked, trying to sound genuinely helpful. "I just told you," he snapped, "they don't work. Now I know those machines like the back of my hand. They always work unless someone else jammed them." I walked over, pressed a few buttons, and the screen lit right up. "Oh, they seem to be working just fine, sir," I explained patiently, demonstrating how to log in and select options. "Maybe it's just a little different from what you're used to." He just stared at the screen, then at me, his face getting redder. "No, they're broken, you're trying to trick me." My patience, already a finite resource on Tuesdays, started to thin. "Sir, I assure you they're not broken. Look, I'll walk you through it step by step." I gestured to the touchscreen again. That's when he completely flipped. He started yelling, a torrent of accusations about how I was incompetent, how the shop was a ripoff, how I was deliberately trying to make his life difficult. My heart started thumping. This wasn't just a grumpy old man anymore, this was something else entirely. He was getting closer, his face contorted with rage. Instinct took over. There was a sturdy chair nearby, and I quickly grabbed it, placing it between us. Not to hit him, just to create a barrier, a little space. "Sir, please, you need to calm down," I said, my voice probably a little higher than I intended. But he didn't calm down. He lunged at the chair, trying to wrench it from my grip. And that's when things went from 0 to 60 in a blink. We were actually struggling over this chair, a ridiculous, terrifying tug of war. His eyes were wide and wild, and then he spat out, I'll kill you for this." My blood ran cold. He just threatened to kill me. I was terrified, absolutely shaking, but some primal part of me refused to back down. I held onto that chair like my life depended on it, trying to keep him at arm's length, trying to shout him down, but he was completely gone. Just when I thought I was going to have to call the cops myself, my manager Dave burst out from the back office. He must have heard the commotion. "Hey, what's going on here?" Dave roared, stepping between us. The old man immediately pointed a trembling finger at me, his voice cracking with feigned indignity. "This young man, he attacked me, he threatened me with this chair." Dave, who knows me and my usual calm demeanor, just blinked at the old man, then at my pale, terrified face, still clutching the chair. "Get out," Dave said, his voice low and dangerous. "Get out of my shop now." The old man tried to argue, to play the victim, but Dave wasn't having it. "You threatened my employee, you physically assaulted him, and you're banned. Get out before I call the police." The old man, muttering threats under his breath, finally shuffled out. Dave immediately locked the door and rushed over to me. I was shaking like a leaf, my whole body trembling. I could barely breathe, it felt like an elephant was sitting on my chest. I was having a full-blown anxiety attack right there on the shop floor. Dave was amazing. He got me some water, talked me through some breathing exercises, and once I could semi-function, he reviewed the security footage. The camera captured everything. The old man's initial grumbling, his sudden outburst, the chair struggle, his death threat. Dave made detailed notes, assuring me that he'd file a police report if I wanted, but for now, the old man was permanently banned. To help me decompress, he even gave me some credit for free personal printing, a thoughtful gesture that honestly just made me want to cry. I was grateful, but the image of that old man's face, those wild eyes, the death threat, it just wouldn't leave me. I thought that was the end of it. Then, about an hour later, the shop bell chimed again. I flinched, but it was Dave at the door, talking to a man in his late 40s. The man was looking apologetic, his shoulders slumped. After a few minutes, Dave called me over, his expression softened with a touch of sadness. It turns out the old man had returned, but this time he had his son with him. The son had heard about the incident, probably from his dad's rambling, and had come straight to the shop. He explained everything. His father suffered from severe dementia. He had good days and bad days, but lately the bad days were winning. He had a history of these kinds of outbursts, often brought on by confusion or perceived slights. The son was mortified, absolutely gutted. He promised Dave that his father would never be allowed out unsupervised again, and offered to pay for any damages or inconvenience. Hearing that, it was like a cold wave washing over me. All that fear and anger, it didn't just vanish, but it shifted. It put a different spin on everything. It wasn't just a crazy, hateful old man. It was a sick man struggling with a terrible disease, lashing out because his mind was betraying him. And you know what? That didn't make the death threat any less terrifying in the moment or my anxiety attack any less real. But it changed my understanding. It wasn't an excuse, but it was an explanation. It reminded me that you never really know what someone else is going through, what battles they're fighting inside their own head. So yeah, it wasn't funny, not even a little bit, but it sure as hell was a story, and it taught me that sometimes the scariest moments can come with the most heartbreaking explanations. And honestly, it made me appreciate the good days and the relatively sane customers just a little bit more. Thanks for listening to my wild tale, Reddit. Stay safe out there and try to be kind. You never know what's lurking beneath the surface.
You ever have one of those shifts where you just know something weird's gonna happen? That was me last Tuesday. I'm Julian, I work at a car dealership, and usually my day involves oil changes, tire rotations, and a healthy dose of polite customer service. But this particular day, this day gave me a story so bizarre, I knew I had to share it with you lot on r/IDontWorkHereLady. It all started when this guy, probably in his mid-20s, shuffled in. He looked like he'd been dragged backward through a hedge. His worn-out leather jacket was practically an antique, his hair was a rumpled mess, and his eyes were bloodshot to the point of looking like he'd been staring at a solar eclipse all night. He was here about an older model sedan he'd just picked up from us, needing a quick checkup. I figured he was just a bit of a night owl, or maybe a student cramming for finals. You see all sorts, right? I got him all set up, went through the usual motions, and as I was typing his info into our system for a new customer profile, I made a casual remark. "Rough night, huh?" I said with a sympathetic grin. "Worked the third shift, maybe." He stopped fiddling with his keys, looked me dead in the eye, and his face was utterly serious, not a hint of irony. "Nah," he drawled, his voice a low rumble. "Been up all night as a bodyguard for my wife." I blinked once, twice, my fingers hovered over the keyboard. "Your wife," I managed, trying to keep my voice even, though my brain was doing a full-on record scratch. "As a bodyguard." Without missing a beat, he reached into his jacket pocket and pulled out a business card. It was camouflage, not just a pattern but proper military-style camouflage. He slid it across the desk to me. "Yeah, I'm a professional bodyguard. This is my card." I picked it up, feeling the thick, slightly textured paper. It was real, a real camouflaged business card for a professional bodyguard. My professional bodyguard, for his wife. I tucked it politely onto my desk, trying to suppress the giggle threatening to escape. This guy was a character, all right, a deeply, deeply unique character. I got him to sign the repair order, double-checked the phone number he'd given me, a standard mobile, nothing fancy, and told him we'd call when his car was ready. A few hours later, the car was done. I picked up the phone, still vaguely amused by the bodyguard encounter. I dialed the number. It rang a couple of times, and then a woman's voice, husky and a little breathless, answered. "Hello," she purred. "Hi," I began, my professional dealership voice firmly in place. "I'm calling from dealership name. Is this the bodyguard?" There was a beat of silence on the other end, then a slow, deliberate reply laced with an almost sultry tone. "No, honey, this is Cam Girl." My brain just stopped. "Cam Girl," I stammered, feeling my face go hot. "What's going on?" "I'm Cam Girl," she repeated, a hint of impatience creeping into her voice now, "and I'm calling to ask if you sent a picture." My jaw must have been on the floor. A picture, me, to a Cam Girl. My mind raced, trying to put the pieces together. The bodyguard, the wife, the camouflaged business card, and now this. "I am so sorry," I spluttered, utterly bewildered. "I have no idea what you're talking about. I'm calling about a car repair for," I trailed off, realizing the colossal screw-up. "For a customer. It seems I have the wrong number." Suddenly her voice shifted. The sultry tone vanished, replaced by a slightly annoyed but normal cadence. "Oh, that," she sighed. Yeah, my boyfriend does that sometimes, gives out my number instead of his. For a car dealership, though, that's a new one. Guess he really needs his car back, huh? A car dealership, his girlfriend's number, his girlfriend, cam girl. I hung up the phone, my ears burning, and then I just lost it. I ran back to the shop, practically bent double with laughter, tears streaming down my face. You guys. You will not believe this, I gasped, recounting the whole glorious, ridiculous story to the other techs. We were all wiping away tears of laughter, picturing this intense bodyguard dude, his camouflage card, and his cam girl girlfriend. So yeah, that was my Tuesday. Never a dull moment when you work with the public, especially when a professional bodyguard just happens to give you his girlfriend's very, very specific wrong number. Always double-check those digits, folks. You never know who you might end up calling.
This next one, yeah, it's a good one too.